Thank you for joining episode 1 of Real Talk. So, this is a series that's going to be on my channel where we talk about hot topics, specifically questions: what is, or what does it mean to be this or to be that? And the point of these questions is to reflect and to ask ourselves, are we this? Are we that? How can we improve? How can I get there? And do I need to take a step back and fix some of my attributes? Because a lot of us, we focus on certain attributes and we think that's what it takes to be successful. But a lot of us in today's society, we become so specialized that we think our specialization covers our weaknesses, but that's not the case. In fact, it highlights our weaknesses. And I truly believe that even though we must be specialized in a skill to be wealthy and successful in today's age, we also should focus on other criteria that help us be a genuine and helpful person in the world. So in today's first topic, we're going to discuss about what it means to be a man and what it meant to be a man many years ago. And the point of this is we're going to reach a conclusion, well, I am, that will hopefully help you and myself on how to be successful with money and your business and your relationships. Because by defining and answering these questions, maybe it can give you a guideline on how to navigate your life. So from my understanding, from everything I've read and everything that I've heard in class, in school, in the books, what it meant to be a man back in the day, one of the characteristics was to have a steady job, like a 9-to-5 job, and you would hold that for many years and save until retirement. That is not applicable to today's world. You know why? Because innovation is higher than ever and people have more rights than ever. So they can leverage their name and their skills to advance their careers. So staying in one place, that meant that the company had leverage over you. In today's world, many of us have leverage over the companies. Point number 2. Back in the day, like the 1950s or whatever, being a man meant that you were the head of the household, that you had a wife and kids. Now, that is certainly a proud characteristic to have in your life, but back in that day, that signified a lot. It proved that you weren't homosexual. It proved that you can take care of others and you can pass on your legacy. If you have a wife, that means you had a queen. And if you have kids, you have the seeds and the next generations to pass down your will and your knowledge. That was highly important back in the day. It is still, but that was one of the biggest things that I noticed of what it meant to be a man in the olden era of humanity. Machismo or machism. So what does machismo mean, or machism? It means a strong or exaggerated sense of power or the right to dominate. Being machismo for a lot of men, it feels good, especially in other cultures that are way different than America. But since we live in the United States, I feel like being machismo doesn't necessarily make you a man. Specifically because, and I say that because machismo is, I think, is founded on the lack of women's rights. Because being machismo, you are basically a dictator to your wife. You have the sense of power or domination over your partner. And that just doesn't fly in today's game. So machismo, even though it could be a trait of what it means to be a man in another country, in the United States, that is for an era that is behind us, and we're in a new era where being a man is different. Given said all that, I have come to 3 characteristics on what it means to be a man in today's game. Number 1 is entrepreneurship. You're willing to take more risks to advance your wealth, your well-being, your financial state. And also entrepreneurship, that title alone is a very popular fad or trend nowadays, because it brings on some good notoriety to yourself that, oh, he's an entrepreneur, he must be doing big things. And many of the times that's not true. But if you're one of those that are succeeding, well, you are succeeding very well, because an entrepreneur 50 years ago is not the same entrepreneur nowadays. Today's entrepreneurs have many more opportunities and more revenues of income. 100 years ago, an entrepreneur basically had to do face-to-face or just sell to people in direct contact. Today we have affiliate marketing. We can sell courses online. We can counsel online. Basically, the internet has expanded what it means to be an entrepreneur. So if you are a successful entrepreneur, specifically a male one, it boosts your self-esteem, it boosts the feeling and your confidence. Number 2, controlling your sexual urges. So back in the day, or throughout human history, we know that people did not consent to a lot of things, and thus many kids were born out of violent and unconsensual acts, like the word rape. In today's world, specifically in the United States, with the Me Too movement, with social media, people have to be wary about doing that type of stuff. And it's not a good thing to do it in the first place, but for those who want to do that, you better rethink what you're doing, because that just shows that you're a creep, that you don't know how to control yourself. Maybe back in the day where you could just dominate anybody and go against their will, that showed power, but in today's game, that shows that you're a criminal, that you are a bad person. So to be a man in today's world, you must have the power to control your urges, your lust, your temptations. And if you are successful at that, you are well respected among your peers, your colleagues, and your friends. That is one thing I noticed, that when you control your emotions and your urges, people tend to respect you better. People are very careful of rights. Rights are very important. If you can respect people's rights, people will respect yours. Number 3, how to communicate your feelings and emotions well. Right now it's hard for me to just communicate this, because I don't just do this to anybody. I don't talk to anybody about this, just a video, or sometimes my family members. But we've seen a lot of movement of letting men speak, communicating your emotions. It doesn't make you unmanly to let your emotions out and communicate. If you were me, if you were born in 2000 and the 1900s, 99, 80s, 70s, I'm pretty sure as a kid you were told boys shouldn't cry. Whether you fell and scraped your elbow because you were trying to drift on the bike too hard, or you got in a fight with your neighbor in the trampoline, or you were playing Hot Wheels and beat some kid up because he beat you, whatever. If you got hurt, you were told not to cry. Today's kids, specifically boys, I feel like they're encouraged by their parents to let out their emotions and not be afraid to cry. But I think what really makes a man is you are able to communicate your emotions well when you're in distress or when you are unhappy. The reason being is, if you can communicate your thoughts, command attention when there's an issue at hand, instead of raging against the crowd and the public, people will trust you. People will not resent you, but acknowledge you and support you, because you are at your lowest point, or not at your best point, but you are still able to lead and control yourself, to communicate and find a solution. And I think that is what it takes to be a man. So let's recap. The 3 things that it takes to be a man, or what it takes to be a man in 2021, is you have to be some sort of entrepreneur. And at one point in your life, you have to try to be your own boss, because that shows that you're trying to be. Being an entrepreneur, it shows some level of competence, that you can take care of yourself and others and run an operation and be successful at it. That takes skill. It's not just luck. it takes skill to be able to maintain and grow that. Number 2, being able to control your urges and temptations, whether they are sexual or greed, vengeance, whatever. If you were able to control your emotions and not come out as a douche, a machismo guy, I feel like you are much more respected and among your peers. You're able to be more employable, more business opportunities. People will trust you more to be able to handle the toughest of situations. Women and men have the same playing field of education nowadays. So you are surrounded not only by male counterparts, but you're surrounded by your male peers, but your female colleagues. And a lot of interaction with that leads to sexual tension or anger or whatever. If you're able to control those urges in a professional setting or a party, you have the competence of being trusted around people that you barely know or people that do know you. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean they trust you. In fact, sometimes people that don't know you trust you more than people that know you. So if you are able to control your urges and temptations around different types of crowds and different types of settings, you are a man in my book. Number 3, to be able to communicate your feelings in times of happiness or distress. Many of us grew up being quiet, not showing our anger or our sadness because it was a way to be a man, which is not good for your mental health. There has to be breaks where you can cry, whether it be in public or in private, but you should have those moments where you're able to release that tension in your head, because that tension, it stays in your body, and that's not good. You must be able to relax it and let it out. So if you're able to let it out and express it effectively, communicate a message or empower yourself or others, people will be able to support you. People always like to support those who are coming from the bottom and that are humble. Remember that. So those are my 3 points on what it takes to be a man in today's day and age. Thank you for watching. Bye.